Ladies and gentlemen and all variations thereupon, this has been the most dumpster fire of years, but the festive season is upon us, and what is the festive season but a time to look to happier, simpler times of the past with nostalgia and wonder. Well friends, this is my first Christmas in a new house, and this year I'm going to create my own decorations that I've always wanted to have but never have had. This year I'm going to create a Dragon Ball tree. Now, you may well ask, oh sensible person of the internet, Bridget, aren't you 30 Aren't you a bit old for Dragon Ball? To which I would say, what's the point in being grown up if you can't act childish sometimes? Goody baby. Now, the first step in the creation of this tree is going to be to create a Shenron tree topper to go in place of the star, a Shenron to grant our most humble and extravagant of wishes. So, without further ado, let's get to crafting. So the first part is going to be to get the body of Shenron, and this is just ordinary garden wire. And you may remember this has been leftover scrap from my construction of my Ninja Seal jewellery box. And this I'm just using wire because it's flexible, so you can bend it round the tree. As long as it's a good length, what we're going to do is stick garland to the top of it to make the body. And the body's going to be very simple. There's going to be two elements attached to the body, and that's going to be the forearms, which will sit around about there, this section. Just something so it looks like it's grabbing hold of the tree, or maybe just looking out in the air or something. Probably resting on something because it's going very heavy. And the head at the far end. Now, I'm going to construct the structure of the arms and head out of clay, but clay can get quite heavy. So, we're going to have to fill out the inside of the clay. And to do that, we're going to use tin foil. First, take a strip of tin foil, place the folded end and fold this wire in half so it's got more structure and support. And then we're going to scrunch the tin foil over the top. Now, I've probably got one eye more to that, but basically we're building up with tin foil the internal structure of it. We want to fill out a fairly light head. So the majority of it is going to be tin foil, and then we're going to put a surface layer of clay onto which we can paint. The head is going to consist of two main components. The back of the head, which is going to be where the eyes sit and the antlers and everything, and that's going to have some fairly bulk, and then the snout that sticks forward. When it comes to creating the arms, I'm going to wrap them around so that it forms a more solid base, and then fold the foil up so we form sort of a structure like the arms. If one side's a little bit bulkier than the other, you have to tear some off, scrunch some more on, depending on how you want it. But we're not going to do the fingers with this, that's going to be created with clay. We're just going to create the arms and hands sort of body size. Now when it comes to the clay, a decision needs to be made. How detailed are we going to go with it? See, there's two versions of Shenron really in Dragon Ball. There's the sort of the advertiser one where he looks like a happy cartoon dragon, and the one that actually gets summoned from the Dragon Balls, which looks a lot meaner and a lot more intimidating. So I'm just creating a thin layer of clay on top. Now if you wanted to go more of a meaner looking dragon, you'd want to add in lots of little details through the clay, sort of like scales and maybe scars or things, areas of interest which you can paint details onto. What I'm going to go for though is the more cartoony looking one. It's going to have a slight mean streak look to it, but this is going to be slightly more cartoony, so it's really going to be very smooth and not much detail. There's not going to be scales on there. If you did want to place in details like scales, however, one good way I found to do that is to use your nail of your little finger and just use that as a sort of shaping tool so that you can create these little loops, little semicircles. You position along, and this will create a sort of scaled effect. You have to build it up slowly over time in order to get it to work, but you can end up with something that looks more like that, which I've done for this dragon cup, where I've just used my fingernail, gone in and created many little scales going up, and that gives more detail to it. As I say, I'm just going to do the cartoony version, so I'm going to forego the scales. I'm just going to paint on some little detail along the snout. It's important to ensure that you don't bake the clay for more than 30 minutes and that you keep the temperature about 130 degrees centigrade, which is about the lowest temperature an oven normally uses. Okay, so setting up, I've got my reference image there. It's always helpful when you paint them to have your reference image available to you. I'm just going to use some regular acrylic paints, and I'm just going to follow along my reference image and have a relaxing time, hopefully, painting up Shenron. When I paint, there's always two things I like to keep in mind. Firstly, there's the age-old saying of Bob Ross that there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. And secondly, I also remember that while I was at university, a university was just up the road from the National Library of Wales. And while I was there was an exhibition of Da Vinci's sketches. So I went to have a look at the Da Vinci sketches, being a Da Vinci fangirl. And while I was there, I saw this sketch of a dragon. But he had sketched it and then clearly erased some of it and then redrew it slightly differently. And it looked like the reason that he had erased it was because it was drawn slightly too large for the page and he couldn't get on everything that he wanted. And I always remember that. So if a great master like Da Vinci can make such a simple seeming mistake, then we should also go easy on ourselves. Now that Shenron's all painted up in these nice anime colours, what we need to do is add on some final details. Shenron actually has a frill of fur, sort of like sideburns, at the side of his head, and I'm going to create them with the same garland I was going to use to create the body. So all I'm going to do is cut off small sections, and I'll attach this to the side of his head and then trim back so it's in proportion. And I'm just going to hot glue that. The long boy's long body, to cut some garland to size.
no. Of course. Shenron can't be summoned without the Dragon Balls.
Will Bridget be able to gather the Dragon Balls in time? Will she be able to summon Shenron and stop the planet from exploding in 5 minutes? Find out all this and more next time on Dragon Ball Tree.
Where's that voice coming from?